Because I'm going to talk about what the different benefits are of co-op living, and because I'm assuming that if you're here, you're interested in living cooperatively and moving into a co-op if you're not already living into living in a cooperative situation. I'm going to ask you, what are the motivations that you have for why you want to live in some sort of cooperative housing? What are the benefits you hope to gain by doing that?
Being part of a community.
Community building, being part of an intentional community, that's very important. And with housing cooperatives, or particularly limited equity housing cooperatives, some co-ops are much more focused on being an intentional community and building community, and others are much less so. Others are more focused on creating and providing affordable housing, and they're more focused on that than on the community, building an intentional community. So if you are seeking to live in a co-op, it's very important to kind of do the homework and call around and talk to people and visit the different places, because some co-ops are much more focused on being an intentional community and some are much less so. Co-housing communities, as you're probably familiar with, are much more focused on being an intentional community and the creating community being a part of that. Some of the co-ops that we have worked with, you saw University Avenue co-op on here. They're a 47-unit co-op with a very low-income housing, low-income affordable. And they, for their community building efforts, when they founded that co-op 33 years ago, they decided they wanted to make sure that every child who lived in that co-op graduated from high school and went on to college or some form of higher education. Because they were all low-income families and a lot of the parents had not completed high school. They wanted their children to be able to do that. And the way they've described it to us is that they have had pretty much 100% success in all the children that have grown up there have graduated high school and gone on to some form of higher education, college, or some other kind of training to get good jobs. And Charles West, who's lived there for many years and has raised his kids there and is currently the manager there, he said it was partly because they really wanted to have a strong community and they wanted to really encourage the children and give them the tools they needed, but he said it was also partly an attitude that they just instilled, the attitude that, you know, don't even think of dropping out of school, and they just created that kind of positive peer pressure for them to do well. What are the other benefits you're seeking besides intentional community or creating community in living in a co-op? Yes?
I'd like to stop paying rent money that I'll never see again, and that it's not going towards anything.
Stop paying rent to the landlord and what?
And to sort of lose money, which just isn't actually going to do anything that I'm never going to own.
That you'd rather own your own home and be investing in something.
Yes.
That you're going to benefit from, absolutely. Well, affordable home ownership is the key benefit that most people are seeking from living in a co-op. And as Rick explained, co-ops are more affordable, and they're more affordable for two reasons. The first and foremost is that the equity is limited. Everyone who's ever lived in the co-op before you has agreed to limit their equity rather than selling for whatever the market will bear. We've limited our equity so that when you move in there, it's still affordable. And then when you move in, you have to agree to do the same, that when you decide to sell your share 5 years, 10 years, 30 years from now, that you also will limit your equity. It keeps the housing much more affordable. It's also more affordable because the members participate and do a lot of the work of managing the housing for themselves. And as you said, you are, instead of paying a landlord, you're investing in something that is going to be a benefit for you. What other reasons are you interested in moving into a co-op? What other benefits?
You can help your neighbors and allow them to help you if you need it.
That's certainly true. And in some co-ops, they have kind of informal childcare arrangements, childcare exchanges. In other co-ops, people do a lot of gardening together. In our co-op, we built a chicken coop, and we have chickens, and we have gardens and fruit trees and things like that. So you can do a lot of things together and help yourselves and your neighbors. What other reasons do people have for wanting to move into a co-op?
Security, not being kicked out.
Absolutely, and I would put that under the topic of control, having control of your housing, particularly having the security of not being evicted from your housing. I spent many, many years as a low-income tenant and was in and out of a number of different housing situations where suddenly the landlord raises the rent to the point where you can't afford it, or suddenly they want to sell the house and you have to move out. So once you move into a co-op, you know you have the security of being able to live there for the rest of your life. If you want to. You can stay there as long as you want, as long as you are paying your monthly assessments. We call it assessments rather than rent or a mortgage. It's not rent because we own it. We're homeowners, but we don't call it mortgage because it covers much more than the mortgage. When you pay your monthly assessment, it covers the mortgage, any repairs, property taxes, insurance, all the other costs of housing. So you have that control every month. If you pay your assessments, you know that all of your housing needs will be covered. If somehow suddenly you need to call a plumber, you know that's going to be covered by the co-op. Is going to pay for that. You don't have to suddenly have these unexpected costs. So control is very important, whether it's the control that I was talking about a few minutes ago, that we decided to build a chicken coop and we planted fruit trees and things like that. Or in our case, we also decided we wanted to put solar panels on all 3 of our buildings so that we wouldn't have to pay PG&E for electricity anymore. And that's something that when you live together as a group and you have the resources as a group, you can do that. You can afford to do that as a group, whereas it would be much more expensive to try to do it if you were a single-family homeowner, and certainly if you were renting, you wouldn't have the control to be able to do that. I think of myself as a little bit of a control freak, and when I was a kid, my sister always called me Little Miss Bossy Pants, and I think I live up to that name, but it's not that I want to control other people. I just want to have control over the decisions that affect me, and particularly my housing. Housing is such a central thing in our lives, and to be able to have control over some of the decisions that affect us in our homes is very, very important. It's a very important factor in co-op living. Another key benefit that is very directly connected to having control is democratic governance. As Rick said, if you live in a co-op, each household has 1 vote, no matter how many people live in your household. Now, Rick and I share a household, so if there's something we disagree on, we have to fight about it because we only get 1 vote in that meeting. So every household has that vote, and you have to really utilize your power by coming to the meetings and really knowing the issues and voting. And that's part of where participation comes in. Now that control and that democratic governance extends to the cost of your housing as well. Every year you have a budget and you have to decide whether you're going to raise the monthly assessment, and you have a vote over that. The assessment is not going to go up unless there's a reason for it, unless somehow the cost of the housing is going up, or if you need to put more money away in reserves, but you have some control over that, which you wouldn't in a rental situation. So democratic governance is very important. Any other reasons that people have for wanting to live in a co-op?
Sustainable practices, you kind of mentioned that already, like being able to do things that are green or energy
Sustainable,
efficient.
Right, and we really were so excited that we were able to put the solar panels on. We also put in thermal windows, the double pane thermal windows. I can't remember what they're called. Is that the right name? And we have 55 windows in our 3 buildings. And that's a lot of windows. Rick put in every one of those. He installed every one of them. That's why I remember how many there were. Suddenly, our apartments that had always been very drafty, leaky, damp, cold, are warmer and cozier, and that's something that when you have a whole group of people, you have enough resources to be able to do those kinds of things, and you have control over that. The opportunity to learn really valuable skills is a big benefit of living in co-ops. For most people, that's not why they move into a co-op, but you actually have the opportunity to learn a lot of things. For instance, about 15 years ago, I was drafted to become treasurer in my co-op. And when I was drafted to do this, I thought, these people are out of their minds asking me to be treasurer. I can barely balance my checkbook if and when I ever get around to it. And I have the phobias of math and money. So I thought they must be crazy asking me to be treasurer. But the current treasurer, that was currently treasurer at the time, trained me on how to do the the bookkeeping and how to manage the checkbook and do the quarterly reports. And you know, the dirty little secret is it's not rocket science. And if I could learn it, anyone can, because I really am not very good with math. And the reality is those Excel spreadsheets, the computer does most of the work for you, which I didn't realize. So that's a very valuable skill that I've learned that now is very useful to me in my life. People who live in co-ops also have to learn how to be officers in the co-op, to learn to be president and chair the meeting, write up agendas and actually facilitate the meeting. People have to learn to do property management and to do maintenance and things like that. So these are really valuable skills that you may not have when you move into a co-op, that you have the opportunity to learn if you choose to. No one's going to force you to, but it's an opportunity.